Good afternoon.
Mike?
Hey, Mike.
How are you
Hi,
all
Mike.
doing?
Hey, everybody, we're doing well.
All right. Let's see.
Larry, you're going to open your attachment instead of viewing on the,
I thought I did open it.
at least the screen that we can see is just the email.
So are we still waiting for Tom?
Phil?
Yep, I got on. Can everybody hear me? I'm on a new iPad.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Perfect.
sounds good.
I can hear
Can't
you.
start without our fearless leader.
We'll give him another minute, and then if he doesn't show up, Mike, we'll have you start the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure he's twitching right now if it's 4 o'clock and he's normally starting at the bell. So
Yeah. Let's see.
Kurt Keena hasn't showed up yet, huh?
No,
He's on as an attendee.
Okay, all right.
well, Mike, I think we'll let you
all
start.
right. All right. Well, until our esteemed leader arrives, I will call the meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is the minutes from the last meeting, which was held on December 1st. Do I have any discussion or a motion on the minutes from the last meeting?
I have reviewed the minutes and I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
We have a motion by Ron.
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Yes.
So if you will look at your minutes a little bit closer, you will notice that on the review of the minutes from last month, it said after reviewing the minutes, they're approved by Phil Hansen.
I saw it.
Seconded by Phil Hansen.
Yeah,
So-
I approved it and I seconded it.
So
Doubling
I'm
up.
just wondering if we want to fix that.
We do. Can you go back on your recording and see who did what there? Because I'm sure I didn't do both.
So Ron Zeman made the original motion and Phil, you seconded that motion. I just need approval to make those changes though.
So we will amend Ron's motion to correct that suggestion or correct them accordingly.
Thank you so much. I apologize for interrupting.
No, that's a worthwhile interruption. So do we have a second?
Second by Dale.
All right, second by Dale. Oh man, you're going to ask me to go through this on a roll call basis. All right. Let's see
Yes.
if I can. All right. Going down the order in which they appear on my screen. Those in favor, Dale,
Yes.
Larry. Oh, you never mind. Phil,
Aye.
Ron,
Yes.
Matt.
Aye.
All right. And GL, I see that you arrived, or is GL online? Or did he just arrive? All right, well, we will move forward with those. So motion carries. Moving on to financials, to approve the financial report and payment of claims for the period ending November 30th, 2020. Do I have any discussion or questions?
There doesn't appear to be anything out of the ordinary, so I go ahead and make a motion to approve both the financial report and the payment of claims report for November.
Okay. We have a motion by Ron
Second by Matt.
and a second by Matt. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we will go by roll call again, and it seems to move around on me. First one, Phil,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
GL,
Yes.
welcome GL, Matt.
Aye.
All right. Okay. Did I miss anyone? Because like I say, your names are all moving around on my list. Okay. Hearing none of those and hearing no objection, motion carries. Moving on to new business. We have an update from our HRA Director, Kurt Keena. And I'm going to let you tech folks hook up Kurt, wherever you are going to. And is that you, Larry, that's working on that?
Kelsey, would that be you or what?
Yeah, Kurt's
I have
moved
some-
over.
I promoted him and I unmuted his mic, so he should be able to go ahead and speak.
All right. Welcome, Kurt.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Oh, good. So before I get into too much depth, would anyone benefit from just a little review of what we kind of do on a day-to-day basis here on the HRA?
Bill Hanson
would-
would.
Mike Stearns would.
Okay. So essentially, the HRA's day-to-day sort of bread and butter business is running two of HUD's federal low-income housing programs. The first being public housing. And so if you're familiar with Pleasant View Apartments on Washington Avenue, that's our 4-story, 60-unit building, all one-bedroom apartments for seniors and disabled low-income individuals.
Which building is that?
Pleasant View, we're kind of kitty corner from Holy Rosary and right south of Winchester, right on Washington.
Yes. Yep, I'm familiar with it.
Yep, big brick building, can't miss this. The other part of our public housing program consists of 30 units scattered around town for families, and they're big units. They're 3 and 4 bedroom units, which is a little unusual. We don't have any 2-bedroom units for families, but we do have 3s and 4s. So that public housing program is about 90 units. And then the other program that we run is the Federal Housing Choice Voucher, or you might remember it as the Section 8 housing program. And in that program, we assist about 110 residents of Detroit Lakes with their rent, and we make payments to approximately 40 or 45 landlords in town on their behalf each month. So our combined operating budget on an annual basis for those two programs is about $1.1 million. about 450,000 of that flows through us directly to local landlords. So a little less than half of our budget is payments that go out of here on a monthly basis to local landlords, and the rest of it helps us run the public housing program. That funding kind of comes from about 4 different streams. Of course, one of the streams is the rent that the residents pay us, and their rent is based on their income. It's about 30% of their adjusted income. And that amounts to about $330,000 a year that we collect from our residents. The other, another chunk of that on the public housing side is we get an operating subsidy and a capital subsidy from HUD each year. That varies year by year, and it's really subject to congressional funding. Some years it's fine, and other years it's quite skinny. But on average, the last couple of years, those two have added up to about $250,000. Then again, on the housing choice voucher or Section 8 side, 450,000 of that is what we call HAP, or housing assistance payments. That's money that we pay out to the landlords. And then there's a small amount of admin money, about $65,000, to pay our administration expenses. Although it doesn't even come close to paying the expenses, because for years now, HUD has funded the administration of the program at 80% of eligibility. So we're getting 80 cents on the dollar of what it really takes us to administer that program. But it's such a big help to so many residents and pumps so much money directly back into our community that we continue to do the program. Any questions on any of that?
Kurt, could you explain the voucher system a little bit to the people?
Sure. So
The vouchers we have and
Yep.
what our potential is?
yeah, we technically have 167 vouchers allotted to us from HUD, but they're currently only giving us enough money to assist or to use about 110 of those. So we have, call it 57 or 60 of those that if HUD would fully fund the program, we could put into use in our community, but because our funding is where it's at currently, we're at about 110. And so in that program, somebody who meets the income qualifications applies for a voucher. If they meet all of those and we can verify that, we give them a voucher, and then they take that out into the community and find a place to rent that will accept that voucher. Not all landlords do. We're fortunate in Detroit Lakes that many of our landlords participate in the program. And so with that voucher, that family or that individual pays, again, 30% of their income towards the rent, and then the HRA pays the rest up to a certain limit, and that's based on bedroom sizes. But what that does is essentially that subsidy is attached to that person and moves with that person throughout their time, versus the subsidy being attached to a property, which is what happens here at Pleasant View. Is that a good explanation, Ron?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. Any other questions before I kind of move on to what we've been up to for the last couple of years?
None for me, thank
I have a question, Dale. I have a question for Kurt. And that is, how has COVID affected, if any, your demand for housing assistance?
You know, it's a good question, Dale. I don't think it's lessened the demand, but for the last probably, well, ever since COVID started, we have had a heck of a time staying connected to applicants. People will start the process with us, and then they stop, or they stop communicating with us, or they don't follow through. We've had to issue probably 2 to 3 times as many vouchers this year to get a leased up voucher. And right now we're experiencing some turnover in our 3-bedroom public housing units. And we're going through 8 to 10 applicants on our waiting list to find somebody that will take that. And a year ago, if we had an opening, we maybe contacted 3 people. and found somebody. So I think COVID just has everybody hunkered down and just not real willing to make a move or to do a change. And I think it's also harder to, get a hold of landlords and arrange viewings and things like that too. But I think the biggest impact for us is just that we're working a lot harder and going a lot deeper on our waiting list to find people to utilize our product.
So the other question I'd have is, do you have a vacancy factor annually?
Very low. In our public housing that we own ourselves, it's typically runs about 98 or 99% occupied all year. I mean, our product is so deeply affordable and, to brag a little bit, so nice that, if we have a vacant unit, by the time we get it turned and cleaned, painted, new flooring, that sort of thing, we almost always have somebody waiting for it.
Okay. Thank you for that, Kurt.
Yep.
Kurt, could you tell them how many are on that waiting list right now?
Yeah, in our public housing side of things, we are working with a waiting list. We're contacting people now that have applied about 18 months ago. And on the Section 8 side, that used to be about a 2-year wait. But like I said, because we've contacted so many people in the last 6 or 9 months, we're now down to just under a year. So somebody that applied about a year ago is now getting contacted from us and saying, hey, if you come in and complete the process, we have a voucher for you.
And so for a lot of us, when we hear that term income-based housing, this is what we're talking about, where these people are very low income and they wouldn't be able to find a place to live if it wasn't for the help of the HRA.
Yeah, I mean, the public housing and housing choice voucher Section 8 program are also sometimes referred to as safety net programs because they do serve the lowest of the low income. An average income for a person living here in Pleasant View is about $14,000 a year. So, these folks are primarily living on Social Security or a disability payment of some sort. We only have probably a handful of residents here at Pleasant View that have outside employment, and most of them are elderly or disabled in some way. So we're serving a very low income population. Other questions, or should I move on to what we've been up to?
Say, Kurt, this is Kelsey. A little bit off subject here, but Becker County HRA also has some Section 8 vouchers. Do you know how many they have?
Right offhand, I want to say they have just a few less than us. But like us, they can't utilize all their vouchers because they don't have the funding either. But I think they have approximately 90 or so in circulation. So it's a similar size program, but of course their jurisdiction is all of Becker County, where we're specifically focused on the city limits of Detroit Lakes.
Well, Kurt, the MMCDC, they've got a program too, but how does that kind of vary from ours?
Well, there's any number of housing programs that work to subsidize the rent in some way, right? And it's really sort of at what level or how deep of subsidy. So there are a number of rather shallow subsidy programs. You might have heard of the tax credit or low income housing tax credit housing. That's a fairly shallow subsidy program. And that's a lot of what MMCDC has developed themselves when they've gone out and built new stuff. It's been more on the tax credit side of things. Similar to the newest tax credit development in Detroit Lakes is Apex Townhomes out there on the edge of town on County Road 34 by Pelican Landing. And we went ahead and project-based 4 of our housing choice vouchers in there. And that's a way of making those even more affordable. And what it does for us is it assures that our clients have access to some of the newest housing in town. So we say to Apex, we will give you our project base 4 of our vouchers in your program so that when you have somebody whose income otherwise wouldn't qualify them for that housing, by using our voucher, you can then serve that family. So I'll move on to a little bit of kind of what we've been up to for a couple years. I've been here now for just about 2.5 years. And really we've kind of had our eye on the prize in terms of capital improvements. Pleasant View, very well constructed building, but it's 45 years old now. And of course, systems don't last forever. And so over the last 2.5 years, we've done about $1.3 million in capital improvements. And of that, we've used about $600,000 of our own money, that capital fund grant that I talked about that HUD gives us every year. And then we've been fortunate enough to leverage about $700,000 in outside money, some from the state and some from the Federal Home Loan Bank. But with that money, we've done things. We've really refreshed our common areas. They were looking a little tired and sad. So, you know, new furniture, new flooring, paint, that sort of thing, new laundry equipment, just kind of freshening the interior and keeping it contemporary. We replaced our original boiler system. We had a 45-year-old boiler system up on the penthouse of the roof. So this past year, we were able to completely replace that along with our hot water heater. And you can imagine the gains in efficiency that one gets in a brand new boiler system versus a 45-year-old system. We also did a complete lighting retrofit in the building. So any of the common area lights have been retrofitted, and that was in partnership with the public utilities. They helped us with that. We did a similar plumbing retrofit with our plumbing fixtures. They originally were not low flow fixtures, and so we've gone through and in all the units changed those out. And both of those projects had really significant impacts on our annual operating costs. Our utility expenses really come down because of that. We are just on the cusp. Next Tuesday, the contractor will start replacing all of the kitchen cabinetry and bath cabinetry in all 60 units. Again, they're original, they're 45 years old, and so they look a little tired and a little dated. Assuming we get decent bids back here, we also have a fairly large parking lot renovation project planned here for the spring. That'll be about a $300,000 project or so. Again, that depends on the bids coming in favorable there. But when I got here, with the turnover of directors and things, there really hadn't been a lot of capital improvements done for, I would say, 7, 8, 9 years. And so we had 3 years worth of capital funds sitting there that needed to be used, because if you don't use them in a timely manner, HUD takes them back, and we sure wouldn't want to see that. So a lot of what I've been doing along with the other staff is just catching up on some of that stuff. And I'm really pleased to say that when we complete this kitchen cabinet project and the parking lot project, that I really think Pleasant View is going to be in a good spot for the next 10 to 15 years. And then we will turn our attention to our 30 family homes around town. They're in decent shape, but like anything, they're also showing a little wear and tear. I'd like to work on storage sheds and driveways, and we're fortunate to have some wonderful landscaping, but it's gotten a little out of control that we need to do that. And then things like furnaces and those, we're looking at 15 to 20-year-old furnaces in all those homes, and those things don't last forever either. So really after this spring, we hope to use the capital funds that HUD gives us, and to the extent we can, start really making some progress on some of those scattered site projects. I'll pause and answer any questions anyone might have.
Kurt, could you tell them a little bit about the staff that you have and the board and so forth, how that works?
Sure. So, like you guys, we have a commission, the HRA commissioners. There are 6 of them, 5 of them appointed by the mayor and the council. And then one of our commissioners is a resident. And so that's the board that I answer to and work with on a monthly basis. And as far as staff goes, it's myself, and we have Nicole Brislin, who works in our public housing side of things. Susan Bjorklund runs our Section 8 or Housing Choice Voucher program for us. And then Bub Erickson is our maintenance person. With 90 units, there's always something that needs to be fixed or worked on. And Bub does that for us. So we're a staff of 4. In addition to those 4 full-time employees, we have what we call a resident caretaker here at Pleasant View. We have a couple, George and Barb Roxandich, who are our caretakers, and they do things more of a janitorial nature, cleaning the restrooms, vacuuming the hallways, shoveling sidewalks, that sort of thing. And so, 6 people total, 4 full-timers, and George and Barb are part-time.
Kurt, if I may, this is Dale, and I'd like to ask you a question. With regard to your total annual operating expenses, what percentage would of those total expenses are paid by rents received from the different projects versus the grants from outside sources?
Sure, I'd say rent pays for about 30% of the costs, and then subsidy or other forms of payments from HUD make up the difference.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that probably the biggest thing that Kurt brought to the HRA here in Detroit Lakes is his experience in how to find those federal funds and state funds and grants that are out there that we hadn't been earlier, taking advantage of. We had Gordy Grable and his wife for years, did a very good job, but then we had some people in between them. And when Kurt came on, and there was a void there where I would say we probably didn't have the experience in the ways about of getting a hold of a lot of this grant money. And when Kurt came on, he immediately saw a lot of these holes that had needed to be plugged and money to be used. And we're just glad that he's done a great job for the HR to help the community with this income-based housing and that type of activity, and updating the buildings and using these monies so we don't lose them.
Yeah, the nature of administering these programs is you're very much at the mercy of Congress and the annual HUD budget. And some administrations and some Congresses fund it relatively well, and others who maybe don't favor it as much would tend to fund it less. Right now, we're in a cycle where I would say we're getting adequate funding. The Section 8 admin fund could always be better. I wish that proration would move off of 80%, but it hasn't budged for 5 or 6 years. Right now, we're filling the gap with some excess funds that we have accumulated over many, many years that are non-HUD funds. But when those run out, we're going to have to make some pretty hard choices about, do we continue that program, and how can we supplement what HUD gives us to do that? Other questions I could answer for anybody?
Kurt, could you talk a little bit about, we talk about low-income housing where people have low incomes and they're not able to buy they would never be able to afford to buy a new house, but they would be able to buy a house that maybe needs a lot of repairs and so forth. And how can Development Authority and the Housing Authority work together and coming up with a plan for trying to find housing for the people that are low income? They want to own their house, they don't have the down payments, but they are making rent payments. Is what can the two of us do to help these low income people find housing that someday they could actually end up owning their own home?
Well, there's really a couple of things, right? I mean, there's two kind of barriers to entry in home ownership. And you're right, Ron, there are a lot of folks whose monthly rent would make a fine monthly mortgage payment. One of the barriers to entry into home ownership is accumulating the down payment. They have jobs, and if there's two incomes in the family, that usually covers expenses, but it doesn't really allow them to accumulate a down payment, and especially if you're talking about a traditional 20% down payment. That's just almost out of reach for some of those families. So there are different programs available from the state and stuff where there are down payment assistance programs. The trouble with a lot of those programs is there are so many rules and hoops, and you've got to fit in a pretty tight little box sometimes in order to participate in those. And you have to be knowledgeable enough to navigate all of those. And it usually requires your mortgage lender to be knowledgeable in those and to steer you towards those. The other area is, so they've made it into home ownership, and like you say, they didn't buy a brand new house. They've bought maybe a fixer, right? And then the issue becomes, you know, fixing a dishwasher or replacing an appliance. That's maybe within the family's monthly budget. But if something big like a roof or a furnace or windows, you know, need to be done, sometimes that can just get deferred for years because they just can't accumulate the money. And so really, you know, when I talk to other folks who do this same thing around the area, there's a big group of us that meet in the West Central region on a monthly basis. Some of the most innovative and interesting programs are things that EDAs or HRAs are using their own levy funds to do. They're saying, we know our community and we know the need in our community, and we'll craft something that meets that need and we'll dedicate some of our funds to it. Now, you should always try to leverage outside funds, of course. That's the first name of a game. But oftentimes, I would say just maybe a year ago, so we took a long, hard look at the small Minnesota Department of Economic Development Small Cities program. And that used to be a really great, flexible, easy to use, very popular program. Well, as the years have gone by, they've added more and more restrictions and caveats and hurdles and thresholds to it. And so it's really become quite onerous to administer, and it's become quite difficult to entice people to participate in. And so sometimes HRAs or EDAs kind of overcome some of that resistance by bringing some of their own funds to the table to help people come up with a match that might be needed or things like that. But it's really the people or the entities that are being really successful and creative, I think, are the ones that think outside the box and say, okay, that program could work for our community except for this thing. And so then they put their thinking hats on and say, how can we help solve that impediment, or how can we lower that barrier and make more people want to do it?
We do have a down payment assistance program that MMCDC is administering for us. So we are investing in that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example of where the local community knows best what's going on and can craft a solution. Sometimes I see communities want to model their program just like a state or federal program, and that can sometimes be a mistake because you sometimes add on things that just don't need to be there. But I think like the down payment assistance program you're talking about, Larry, is a perfect example of the community coming together and saying, here's a need in our community. here's who can fund it and here's who can administer it.
And going on with what Kurt's saying on this, we all know about houses in town, some on the north side, some over by the old where DLCCC is. There's homes that might be sitting empty, homes that need to be having some update, but it's trying to find that there's people out there looking for housing, but it's trying to match up these people with these houses and have money to provide that way they can buy it low enough and with a little bit of their own work along with some construction workers, carpenters, to make this house a livable house where these people can actually become owners. And that's kind of what, if in the ideal, if we could put these people in these houses together so they would actually end up making payments every month where they would actually have something that they own themselves. And that's kind of what the housing authority would like to do, is help these people, but it's pretty tough because as you just heard from Kurt, our funds are limited too with the HRA. So it's how we could do that. And if you bring in MMCDC with help on that too, but it's trying to, how can we hook up with these houses that are selling for 75, 85, 110,000, put some money into them. And so people can end up actually with a little work, have a pretty decent house that doesn't cost a lot and probably be a lot less of what they're paying at some apartment unit.
All right.
How do we get there? That's the question.
All right. Thank you, Kurt. Any other questions or discussion points? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kurt. Appreciate you joining us for the meeting.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. We always appreciate the chance to learn more about, well, except Ron seems to know a lot about it, but some of us really gained a lot today. So thank you.
Well, Ron actually pays attention each month, so he's a good student.
Well, we'll do our best to do the same then. All right.
I'm chairman of the housing authority.
Well, and it shows. All right. Very
and
good.
Kurt is, believe me when I say he's the best thing that's happened to us in a long time over there. I mean it. He has put us on to a lot of things, so we're lucky to have him.
Great to hear. Great to hear. Awesome. All right, we will move on to the next item. That is item 4B under new business, the review of the 2020 annual report. So my guess is Larry, you're going to run with that?
I am. As we all know, 2020 has been a very unusual year, and certainly the COVID-19 pandemic has influenced what we've been doing with some of our time. The Development Authority assisted the city in dispersing $205,094 in COVID relief for small businesses. We provided 39 DL Cares COVID-19 small business interruption grants for that $200 and some thousand, which I think was a very good use of the CARES Act money. We also, prior to that, set up a COVID-19 emergency loan fund, which would provide a $4,000 loans to businesses. We have not had anybody take advantage of that yet, but apparently with the state and federal grants and our grants and the county grants, people maybe have not needed those loans, or maybe the dollar amount is just so small that it hasn't been something that's caught their attention, but they are still available. We have had some other development in town too, besides dealing with COVID. The Midtown development was completed this year. Pelican Landing, a 76-unit assisted living facility, was completed. And we approved 2 facade improvement grants, one for LIT and one for Mark Hagan for the Schiller Building at 817 Washington Avenue. So we've had a very active year and a very unusual year.
All right, are there any other questions or items of discussions for the 2020 annual report? Okay, well, hearing none, thank you very much, Larry. We will now move on to item 4C, which is a consideration to adoption of a resolution approving redevelopment project number 41.
I should
Blah,
point
blah,
out that
blah,
this
blah.
is actually a public hearing, so you're going to need to
Oh.
open a public hearing for this item.
Okay. Okay, this is where my Robert's Rules of Orders maybe get a little loose. So at this point, I will suspend the current Development Authority meeting, and I will open the public hearing
Correct.
for consideration to adopt a resolution approving this redevelopment project number 41.
Correct.
All right.
So the details are that this project is a housing district. The name of the project is Tower Heights. It includes 48 rental units and 42 single-family units. The total project cost is approximately $15 million, and the amount of tax increment financing requested is $1,615,900. That's about 11% of the project cost.
What's the total cost again, Larry? Could you give that to?
15 million.
Okay.
I'm trying a new microphone here, so I hope that it's working well. The one on my laptop seems to last for a while and then go out. So let me know if there's any issues with the microphone. This amount is estimated to be paid out in 18 years. By state statute, a housing district can run 26 years. The land cost for this project is $349,400, and the cost for streets and utilities is just over $1.5 million. So the plan for this development is that the 2 apartment buildings would be constructed in the first few years of the district, and approximately 4 houses would be constructed per year or more, but at least a minimum of 4. And that would make this project work and be completed in 18 years with the TIF. The rental units, 40% of the rental units would be rented to people at 60% of median income or less, and 95% of the owner-occupied units would be sold to people that are at 115% of median income or less. And the developer does plan to sell those units with the specials paid.
Larry, Dale here. Who are the principals behind this project?
This is Pelican River Heights LLC. It is Casey and Bob Brislin and Jason Brislin. And I don't know if there are others involved in that as well, but that's the primary people involved.
Thank you.
So Larry, go over again as far as building the houses and the apartments. I know the TIF's over 18 years, but how long for the entire project to be done? How many years are you looking at on that?
It would take about 10 years if they go at 4 per year, 4 housing units per year. If they accelerate that, it would be less. So 10 years or less.
How about the apartment unit? When would that be built?
Though the apartments, there's 2 apartments, so they would be built in the first 3 years of the project.
Okay, and those would be income-based housing basically then.
Well, 40% of the units would be rented to people that are at 60% of median income.
Okay, 40%.
And Larry, when you say 4 per year, I assume that's calendar year?
Yes, calendar year.
Thank you.
And approximately, what are the costs, or what's the houses going to be selling for approximately? What are you looking at? What range?
That is a question for the developer, but I'll let them answer that.
And I do see that Casey Brislin is on. So Casey, would you like to speak to that?
As far as the cost of the house, we've been building a pretty standard split entry home that we would be continuing out there.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear us now?
Better, yes.
Yes.
It's better.
Okay, sorry about that. No, as far as the houses, if you're familiar with our Pelican River.
No, we
And-
can't hear
and
you.
we dropped you again, so. All right, who?
That should be silent.
There
Can
we
you
go.
hear us now?
Okay, we heard that.
Okay. As far as the houses go, you know, it'd be very similar to what we did in Pelican River Heights.
Casey, you drop off after about the first second, and it sounds like you're going into the tunnel at that point. So whatever you're doing to correct it, it does not appear to be working.
I don't know that you have a microphone volume.
Jason, we heard that.
Am I close to the microphone?
Yeah, that helps.
You're improving, yes. Thank you.
Okay, so what we're saying is in Pelican River Heights, that was the standard of the housing that we're building. So, you know, it's a basic split level house that we're building. So it's about 1,200 square feet per floor. And then, you know, we'll offer it in a couple of different ways. So with the basement unfinished and in the upstairs finished with a couple bedrooms, and then of course finished. So price is gonna vary, and it's gonna be on market value. If we told you 250 at the beginning of this, and now we see 20% increase on our materials and everything, obviously that's gonna be, you know, subject to market value. You know, and
Right.
over the
Just
course of 10 years.
for example, we do have the estimated market value of the units listed at 245,000.
Yep. I don't know if you heard Casey. That's what we're shooting for.
Okay, in the apartment rental, what are you looking at for the apartment rentals?
We won't know for sure on the rentals until we know from the developers that we're working with on that, as far as size of units and everything else. And of course, we'll solicit some input there as well.
So these will be mostly market rate units, except for the 40% that have to be rented to the low income or affordable housing for low income.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, I would be okay with TIF on these as long as we're guaranteed that 40% is going to be for the low income housing for that type of rental units.
Ron, that's a requirement. If they don't meet that requirement, we don't have to pay out the TIF.
Okay,
They have to do that.
That's what I wanted to hear then. Thank you.
Phil Hansen here. I saw up earlier in the document here that it said it's a $12 million project. Larry, you said it's 15. I also see that it says it's 76 units is going to create 50 new jobs. Is that 50 jobs to build the project, or what exactly does that mean?
So the number of jobs is based on the housing authority. They say that X number of apartments and housing units equal so many full-time jobs, and they have a specific equation in there that you use to come up with that. So that's over the course of the development. That's how many jobs it'll create, and the total on line D, source of financing, the total is 15,449,000. Looking to see where you would have read the 12.
It was further up in our documents.
Sure. That's the building cost. That alleviates the land acquisition and the site development and such. So.
Okay, I get that. So when you say you're creating 50 new jobs, does that mean that 50 new people are going to move here to work at BTD and Lake Shirts and all of that? Is that kind of what that means?
Well, we're going to provide housing for those personnel, absolutely. But But no, the jobs that are created are through the building of these infrastructures.
Okay, I got it. And then once the building is built, those jobs go away.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah, no, I didn't quite understand. I'm not calling anybody out on that. I just wanted to understand.
Yep. Good question, Phil. Are there any other questions?
Can you tell us, Phil Hansen, again, where exactly is this going to sit? Where exactly is it?
This is out on County Road 131. It is north of the new county jail as you head towards Floyd Lake.
Okay. All right, yep.
Off of Tower Road there, if you know that is.
Yep,
yeah.
yep, I do. Yep.
Any other questions or any other input at this point?
Phil, you bring up a good question there. Just looking at the parcel layout, are these apartment buildings going to be on the south side of the property closer to Tower Road, or are they going to be more on the north side along the property with the housing to the south?
No. What is that? East? Or
Well, okay, whoever is speaking, we cannot hear you. I'm guessing, is it Casey?
that's right. Yeah, that's crazy. So you'd be on the southwest side of
The development portion that we have. The apartments right now, as we have it laid out, unless we find out it's more efficient or more desirable, is at the goes on to Tower Road. It does not go on to 131 from the
Okay.
apartment side.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or input? Okay, we'll repeat. Any other questions or input? Okay, hearing none. If I understand this correctly, I believe at this
I have one
Okay.
more. You know, we had said, you know, we were trying to stay between 10 and 15 years for TIF. I know this is going to 18. This is a bigger project, I think. I mean, I think it's a good project. I'm not saying that, but is that something we're willing to negotiate? And I know, Ron, you're looking at me because of the Midtown situation, but I think we should at least discuss it.
Well, one thing I like about it is that we are helping people with income-based housing, which we really need in Detroit Lakes. And so I'm with it. I would prefer keeping it 15 years or less, but with trying to find income-based housing nowadays is pretty doggone tough unless you're going to the housing authority. So with HRA, so I would be willing to, I guess I'd be willing to give 3 extra years because of the size of the project along with these new houses being built.
Yeah. And just so Brooklyn, so you understand, this is an ongoing conversation. Every time we do TIF, we're like, are we burdening the next development authorities with something we did for so long? We're gone and dead, or at least off the board. You know, we want these things to turn over fast so we don't burden the next generation with these, you know, with these TIF situations. But like Ron said, you know, this is a good project. So just a little explanation from our end.
What you want to do, though, is to provide enough tax increment financing so that the project is successful. If you shortchange it and you don't have enough money to make that project a success, the next developer that comes along isn't going to want to do a project in town because he's going to say, you can't make it.
Yeah, didn't you say, Larry, isn't this that for but, or they would do the project for?
But for the tax increment, right?
Right.
The but for test.
One additional piece of history is, you know, there is the possibility that if this project moves more quickly than than it's projected out, the TIF would be satisfied at a faster rate and then closed at a faster rate. If I'm not mistaken,
that is correct. Yes.
Okay. You said all the specials are going to be included in the price of the house. Is that correct? Did I hear that, or was I?
Yes, that is our going forward plan.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Any other discussion or questions during the public meeting? Hearing none, at this point, I will close the public portion of the meeting and reopen the Development Authority meeting so that we can have additional discussion and or a vote on item 4C, which is this consideration of the resolution for redevelopment project number 41.
Well, I think it is a good project. I do like the fact of the income-based part of it, and because of that, I would make a motion to go ahead and to approve this resolution number 41 in for redevelopment in 41-1 for tax increment financing.
We have a motion from Ron. Do we have a second?
I will second that, Matt.
We have Matt Boke with a second. All right. Any additional discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, we will do a roll call. Ron,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
GL,
Yes.
Matt,
Aye.
Phil.
Yes.
All right, we have approval. The motion carries on item 4C. And thank you for joining us, Casey. We appreciate you, doing this project. All right, we will move. Yep. All right, we will now move on to old business under section 5. And these are for informational purposes only, but worth discussing. Economic development priority list and commercial and industrial property list. Does anyone have anything they would like to add, delete, comment on? And I will start off that I see that whether or not this is worth discussing or not, but I do see that 1 block away from my office, there is a newer, well, an old commercial building that's up for sale. And is this something that Development Authority wants to give consideration to because it's on the corner of Minnesota and Front? The Precision Printing building is up for sale.
Hey, Mike, just before, did we close that meeting and open this one back up, or just for?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, all right,
public meeting was closed prior to
Okay,
our vote.
all right. Okay,
Yep,
great,
no,
okay.
Well, either that or I totally missed it. So that's a fair question. So, but that is a possibility. So, so as part of this, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty early, but I just stumbled upon that fact that one was now available, and I just kind of think of that as a piece of. I don't know if we're necessarily looking for additional parking, but as its proximity to the police department and public parking behind Washington Square Mall and everything. Just
I'm not
something
sure
to throw.
that it's a good question. Maybe Kelsey has some comment on that. The Development Authority used to own that.
Yeah.
Wow, we could come full circle. Kelsey?
We've talked about it. We kicked around some ideas when we were doing some planning for the police department and a possible city hall project. And we actually looked at that site as a potential site if we were ever going to build a combined facility. That ship kind of sailed. We built the PD across the street as a standalone building. I've talked to Kevin there, who owns it, a couple times, probably last year, seeing if we were interested, and I knew it was being listed. But I guess at this point, we don't really have a project in hand where we would be looking to acquire it, and certainly at that price tag, that's a big price tag to just buy it, to sit on it.
For the price of the lot, essentially.
Yeah, for the price of the lot.
Well, what was the price tag on it?
About 700, I believe, or 712 or 713. Yeah, you can't cash flow it based upon the land value. So, all right. Any other discussion on those items?
No, but I have a question though on the talk of Aldi's coming in. Is that still moving ahead to be on the location where the Boys and Girls Thrift Store is? Is that still moving ahead?
Yeah, they are still moving ahead, Ron. They are submitting their land disturbance permit applications and getting things in order. I have not seen the lot division request yet, but I'm expecting that to come shortly.
I have this Dale here. I have a question for Larry perhaps, and it has to do with item B under old business. And that is what happened with Gooden Company and their request for an option on that land?
The Norwood building.
We sent the agreement to Gooden. They have sent it back with some requested changes, but I expect that we'll have that signed within the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else have any questions or discussion points on those items, B, A or B?
Well, I was going to ask Larry if he's heard anything about anybody interested as far as coming in town with new retail for the mall or for Washington Avenue. It's we really need some good retail stores coming into town. And have you had any replies or
Retail movement in the retail sector, Ron, is very stagnant right now.
Okay, I'm just keeping my hopes up, but I know it's been tough with COVID and stuff, but where my concern is we used to have a powerful downtown, and I'm hoping that we don't lose that hold we used to have in our region, because we really did have one heck of a downtown with everything. So that is a concern of mine, that it stays healthy.
Understandably noted. All right. At this point, I am going to go down the list of committee members or members and ask for if they have any additional questions or comments. I will start with Dale.
No, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
All right, Ron.
I just want to say thanks to the staff. It was a busy year last year in spite of COVID and stuff still going on. And hopefully we can get this COVID thing behind us and get more opportunities going for the people here in Detroit Lakes.
Definitely noted. Matt.
In the last meeting or two, I know we've talked about the parcel out at Sanford there and Highway 10. Have we reached out or heard anything about their interest to move that land, or is that just kind of still in a holding pattern there as well?
The last time that I talked to them, they were still not interested in selling it.
Okay. Thank you.
And
That's all I have.
I think if they were going to sell it, I'm not sure we would like the price. But
Well,
Nope,
just
it-
put it,
Yep.
just
Just
put it
make
on your
sure- just
calendar
see
to
with
check
you.
every now and then.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. GL.
Nothing, thank you.
All right. And Phil.
I mean, we kind of skimmed over that precision printing building. I mean, I know it's expensive. I don't know what our cash situation is, but I don't think we should just say, no, we can't do that. I mean, I would much rather see, a business buy that, but we want the right business in there too. I don't think we should just cast that off if that's the going price or if it's way high. I don't know. I mean, we got a whole area up north down with our industrial district up there. I mean, we've got all kinds of lots that someone had the foresight to go ahead and build that. I mean, with what Ron said, we want to rebuild our downtown area. I mean, I don't think that should just be flippantly cast off. And I don't know what the price should be on that either, but I think that's the work that we do there, is we make things better. And, it costs us the development authority something to do that sometimes, but we have a better town at the end of it. And, I witnessed that with, right behind Central Market and we see the Holiday Station in there now. Well, that was a mess in there before, and the road was coming in. And I mean, that is 100 times better than it was 15 years ago. So I don't know. We got a brand new police station behind it. We got the main drag on the other side of it behind the mall. I don't know what to do, but I think that kind of building is our kind of work. Nothing more.
Tell you what, Phil, stop. Go ahead.
I would say ideally it'd be if somebody's going to look at that thing, you'd hope they'd look at that Midwest Printing, but they'd all go right up to the corner and take everything out, because that thrift store where they have children's clothing now and that stuff, those buildings in pretty tough shape too. But
that is a standalone unit.
yeah, and so unless you have those other buildings to go along with it, I think it'd be tough to to have just that one building for that price. That,
Yeah.
that I think would take something that would be big enough to take up that whole corner, but
Tell you what, Phil, stop by my office. I'm 1 block away. We'll walk around it a couple of times and yes,
I thought it was for the
spitball.
whole building there. I guess I wasn't understanding that. Just
There is one, the variety store, or the one little store that's on the northwest corner is owned by a different individual.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Well, yeah, I didn't either until I looked at the plat or the aerial of it. But all right, anyone from the administration have any questions or comments before we adjourn?
Nothing else.
All right. Well, if there is no objection, I intend to adjourn and immediately call Tom Clevey for not giving me enough notice. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned, and thank you all very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Nice job, Mike. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.